So I thought about doing something a little different this week because everybody knows me and hears me talk all the time. So I thought I'd do a little meet the team. And you're about to meet Alana Caplan, who was so gracious enough to agree to start working with me last year. Was it last year? No, this year.
Last year.
Last year?
Last year. I mean, the official announcement came out January of 2023, but
right, fair.
yeah.
Right. I feel like, was this year like worth 10 years? I really feel like that. Anyway, not to get off topic, Alana really, really loves talking about herself, not at all. So we're going to try to pull it all out of her. But I also thought it'd be fun to talk about the fact that we hear so much about... There's so many, how many times have you heard that? There's so many realtors. Why do you want to be a realtor? I remember when I got my license like 12, 13 years ago and people were like, why do you want to be a realtor? There's so many realtors.
And I think the number's probably doubled since then.
I think the latest number I saw, actually, my unofficial co-host Joel, Kadish sent it to me the other day. I think it's something like 83,000
in Ontario.
Agents in Ontario.
Yeah. And like 60,000 of those are in Toronto.
Yes, yes, in the GTA. Yeah. Although the other number that I always find really interesting to remind people is that 85% of those don't make it to year 5. So this is an industry where the majority of people who are in it are tourists.
Right.
They do not live in the real estate world on a regular basis. And I wonder how many part-time versus full-time, but I don't know. So I was lucky enough to not only have Alana join me, who was Rookie of the Year last year at the brokerage, but also to give like perspective of someone who just joined the business. And we can both talk about how I didn't want to have a team. Alana didn't want to be on a team. And yet here we are and we're enjoying it. So welcome.
Thank you.
She's so happy.
So excited to be here.
Okay, so you worked for WestJet before you decided to become an agent.
That's right.
How long were you at WestJet?
I know some of this, 10 years, I want to say.
Was it really that long?
I can't even remember. I came back I taught English in South Korea, and then I came back and got a job with WestJet because I figured, I love to travel, and that seemed like a good way to do it. And I think I started there in 2014. So I guess maybe it was 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was that? WestJet isn't listening. Don't worry.
I remember coming, or maybe it was when I was still away. And I don't know if you remember this viral video that they had where it was a Christmas, it was called like the WestJet Christmas Miracle. And they had everyone... it was like a flight that was going from Toronto to Calgary or something. And they would you would go up to the box and you would like say like what you wanted for Christmas, right? Yes. And so it was like, someone's like, I'll take a pair of socks. And another person's like, oh, I want like a flat screen TV. Blah, blah. And then they arrived and the presents came down the carousel. And I remember thinking like, whoa, that is so cool.
If I go to work there, do I get a flat screen TV?
But like to be able to do stuff like that, felt important to me. Okay. And so it sounded like it was something fun and meaningful. And
then you went to work.
And then I went to work there.
Do you know, small world story, I used to work for a gentleman named Peter Bartram, and his brother was the VP of marketing who created that campaign.
Richard. Yes. Of course I know. I mean, I don't know him personally, but we have met.
Yes, Richard Bartram.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. I mean,
world.
I totally drank the Kool-Aid. I was like, rah, rah, WestJet. I was so excited. And, it was at a time in WestJet's history when it was still very much like,
it was the underdog,
we are owners.
You were scrappy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, we're owners and we care and, and that's, yeah. So that's what that was. And then, you spend some time in Toronto Pearson Airport, and it just takes a toll.
I love to travel. I hate to fly. But yeah, sorry. And WestJet's definitely not my favorite. But
Yeah,
I
that's
think
okay.
that the one of the things that also impressed me was your loyalty to be with a company for a long time. I don't think that that's something that most people do anymore. Right? So I always got the impression from you that when you made the decision to be an agent, it wasn't like, oh, that looks like fun. I'm just going to show a bunch of houses,
Right.
and see how it goes. You were like, this is, what I want to do. You've thought it through. Yeah. You do have a family connection, which we won't go into, but like, what was it that kind of said, okay, we're going to go from, this WestJet brand, really well known, and now create my own brand and be an agent.
Exactly. I think that, again, it came down to like figuring out what I wanted to do that matched my own values and basically just like the way that I wanted to live my life, and
So you saw
Does
it
that
as
make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to like translate it, I almost feel like you wanted to be able to have more autonomy.
Yeah, or more agency over, of what I was doing. And so, yes, I have my father-in-law was a real estate agent. Funny enough, even before then, I remember being in high school and going to look, we were moving, and so our house was for sale, so we were going to look at houses. And I remember saying to like my dad or someone, like, oh, like being a real estate agent looks like, I think I would be interested to do that. And they totally talked me out of it. Oh, it's all evening, it's all weekends, it's blah, blah, like, and so and I mean, really, like it's always been something that I've been interested in. And I think that that's kind of why I decided to make the move. Obviously,
Right.
during COVID, it allowed me some free time to really like put the work in to get my license finally, and here we are.
So I would not be surprised if there were lots of people who had those stories unless their family was in it per se. I had a similar one where I remember being at someone's house, and the mother was just having one of those conversations. We were in high school, same thing. And she was like, what do you got, what do you girls want to be when you grow up, kind of like conversations, right? And I don't remember what my friend said, but I said, you know what? I said, I think I really want to be a real estate agent. I babysat for this family, and the mother did. And I thought she was just like the coolest person in the world. And she just it always looked really, really glamorous. And I was always like kind of, my first career was in fashion. So like that home, like design, the whole thing really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she goes, well, that's not a real job, so you can't do that. And it was funny because I told a friend of mine who's an agent, who's been an agent for like 30 years. And he's like, well, it wasn't one back then. And I was like, okay, first of all, I'm not that old. And I think that that's the reality is that, the business has changed a lot, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So, okay, so you thought you would have all this autonomy and you would have control over your life. And how did that go? I always say, I'm like, I own my life until I don't.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a balance, I would say, for sure. It's, I love that on a Tuesday morning I can wake up and go to the grocery store, and if that means that I'm doing showings until 8:00 at night, then that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of balance that I like.
I think also the conception of like the weekends and nights is also
Old school a little bit.
It is. I think like the weekends and nights of a market where things sit on the market and like, for 3-4 months, and you can wait until the weekend but I think now with everything online and being able to see something and kind of qualify it to a certain extent, people aren't necessarily waiting. I would say there's nights. I actually think it's less on the weekends. I think
I
don't know if you've
agree.
noticed, people are so busy.
Yeah.
They don't want to see us on the weekends.
No,
They're
I
like, you know
agree.
what? Either I'm going away, I've got to go grocery shopping, I'm spending the time with the kids. Like, it's too busy. It's almost like people will be like, how's Tuesday afternoon? I have a break in between meetings.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm finding as well. I think it's I mean, my grandma keeps asking me, "Oh, like how you must be so busy this weekend with work." I'm like, "No, Grams, like I'm happy to come up and see you." Like, most of the work takes place, I find, during the week, and it's like, especially during COVID, I think that has really it's changed things, and it's allowed people to have that kind of flexibility to get out on a Tuesday afternoon or.
Yeah, no, and I think in the days of COVID, when I remember working like 24 hours a day, and I could not see straight, it goes back to like, you don't own your life, but you're working at something versus just spinning in a wheel. And when it's done, it's done. So like, and that's the other thing. I remember, I went to someone that I really, really respected, who'd been in the business a long time. And she's like, well, you have a cottage. And she's like, you won't be able to go. That's not true. Like, I think that there is that ability to say, yeah, so sometimes I'm going to need to be home because I need to be home and that's it. But I think that that balance has definitely changed for sure. So the other thing that I mentioned was the fact that when I first started, I did not want to have a team. I thought I didn't, like, not to disparage anybody in particular, but I think there was that stereotype of agents who built their business and then they thought, okay, well, I'm going to build it even bigger. And how do I do that? I'm going to hire agents and I'm going to give them the business, or I'm going to, you hire, Joe Smith and he's your realtor and he's the big name in the neighborhood. And then you have this agent who just got their license 2 months ago and by the way, I've walked into enough open houses to know that most of them don't know what's going on in that house. They have there's no ability to actually sell it. They're just a warm body. Yeah. And I thought, I don't want to deliver that, right? Like, that's not what I want to do. And if someone hires me, they're going to get me. And then I realized that I couldn't do everything myself. And I also realized that having amazing agents and not just a body was also an option. Cue Alana. So you also had hesitation when you had a lot of questions. You weren't sure. You didn't. So what was your hesitation other than like me? But yeah.
No. When I was finishing up the courses and to get my license, and you start, they say like, go interview brokerages and how are you going to choose a brokerage? And then, the advice is like, oh, you should get on a team because like when you're on a team, you can have like work to do, right? And there'll be leads that'll be given out to you and that sort of thing. And I was hesitant immediately because that just didn't seem like something that I was working towards. I wasn't just like looking for a handout from some person or some random team that I didn't feel a connection to. And so that was my initial hesitation. And then, I joined Slavens and had my first year, working independently, which was amazing. And then, yes, you approached me and I was still, I guess, like unsure about how teams worked, because my understanding was like you have like the main person. So whether it's, Mr. Joe Smith. And he has this huge team with agents all around, right? That was kind of my understanding of how teams worked. And so it was really just kind of getting a sense of like what you were looking to to do with, because, you know, you didn't have a team. And so like, I think part of that was actually appealing to me, because then we could kind of figure out together like how
what that would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think that, you know, I remember very distinctly, you know, I was like, just be honest, like just say like whatever's on your mind. And I was like, you don't want to be someone's schlepper, right? Like that was, but by the way,
I said, I don't want to do all the bitch work.
Yes, those were her exact words. And I think that, you know, my response was, I don't want someone who just wants to run around and draw like, and refill all the pamphlets at the different, you know, and turn the lights off at the open houses and that type of thing. And quite honestly, I love doing open houses. Like I love being there and being able to go back to the client and saying I was there and I was able to like get a temperature check on who was coming through and what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I think, but I do think that there are a lot of agents who do join, and they are asked to do a lot of that stuff. So it's a different, definitely a different role. And I think people who are listening and wondering, like, you know, what I would say I really liked, and which I would say was the biggest plus for me, delivering better results to my clients was. And for anybody who's thinking about, you know, hiring an agent or that type of thing, and who and what, and is it an independent or is it a team? I actually heard, oh my God, I'm going to get her name wrong now. So I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get it wrong. It's not because I don't want to give her a shout out, but she's a very large agent in Toronto who has like a brokerage under her name, like almost like Darren, but smaller. Mm-hmm. And Heaps Marin. Is it Heaps Marin? No, I'm getting two of them mixed up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She's a very impressive business owner, and you know, she was talking about the difference between an independent and a team. And teams are the biggest disruptor in real estate. They have been the biggest disruptor. And I mean, you know, for all brokerage that are watching, the reality is that who we are has become much more important than the brokerage name anymore. And, you know, I go back to like when you talking about when you were a teenager and you remember looking for a house. I remember, because I'm older than you, that like the guy walked in from Century 21. He was wearing a gold jacket. Like all the agents wore the gold jackets.
Yes.
Like what? Yeah. Right. So now, you know, who you are and what you're able to deliver is much more important. My biggest challenge was I was only one person and I could only be in one place at one time. So I could never go on vacation. I could never leave the city. If I did, it was always really stressful. Like, oh my God, is something going to come up on the market that my client wants to see? And by the way, it always did. Always, and always on a long weekend. Like literally always on a long weekend.
Yeah.
So like no matter what, agents are so busy, and that house that you want will come up as soon as they go away. So it's something to consider when looking at an independent or a team. It's not so much that you're getting passed off to someone, but that was a challenge also was I go away. Okay, so you work in a brokerage and there may be someone who's, you know, just got their license or junior or just wants to be really helpful and says, I'm happy to cover you while you're away. I don't know how they work as well.
Right.
They're not working with me. They don't know that family. They've never worked with, you know, like they're not entrenched. So the feedback that I would get if I would send people would be like, yeah, thanks, it was helpful, but like they were pushy or they were this or that. And it's like you can't control, but you're still responsible for that experience. Yeah. Whereas I also think like when we work on deals together as well, it's very much like a partnership as well. It's not like, okay, Alana, you're doing all the open houses or you're doing all the bitch work. Yeah. Well, I would also say that we're very lucky because we also work, like we're a team within a huge team under Darren as well. Yeah, so
exactly.
I mean, I think that that's probably, if I had been you, the hardest decision because you almost had all that support, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because like, obviously, you know, Darren's call me anytime and I felt comfortable enough to do that. But at the same time, there is something to be said for having, it's almost more like
a group.
Yeah.
Well, it's like for sure.
Like peers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Or
100%.
Yeah.
So you never feel like
Because,
you're
like,
asking a favor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like,
One of the things that Darren said to me that resonated with me that I feel like I would leave with people who are independent agents, who are trying to figure out what they want to do, is that this business is really lonely. I actually will say that before moving to Slavens, I found it to be lonely. And yes, I had friends that were agents. Yes, there were people that I could call, but not having like a team, not having that kind of ecosystem every single day. If it was just like a bad deal or like a bad day or a bad month or, anything like that, or just bouncing things off of one another, it's so nice to be able to have that. And I think we have that on two levels, our team and then also with the brokerage.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it was tough because when I first started, we were still in lockdown or, there were limitations on,
So hard.
coming into the office. And so I actually didn't really get the full experience of that until later on, but I would have to agree. I know a friend of mine who also worked at WestJet who got her license during the pandemic. She lives in a city like farther north, and same like she's one of these cloud brokerages, and that's the thing. It's just like we keep in touch, and we always say to each other, it's not for the faint of heart. Like this is a
I said that to you the other day.
Tough business to be in because you're right. It is. Well,
the highs are really high and the lows are really low, and and by the way, I always say like I'm no brain surgeon. Like honestly, I am, but you have to have the DNA to be able to get through the ups and downs.
Yes, you do.
And then not having, like, if you're in a cloud brokerage, who are you talking to? Now, that's not disparaging. Like, I think that there's agents who are like happy just to do 3 or 4 deals a year. They live remotely. They're good to just service a few people. I think obviously it depends on what you want to achieve in your career and your life and your brand and all that stuff. But I think people who choose to go that way or do it based on like how low your desk fees are or whatever that is, I think is not always the best way to do it.
Yeah, agree.
Well, I thank you very much for the painful experience.
Okay, good. We're done.
Yourself for being on camera. But hopefully also all of our clients who have dealt with you so far now know you a little bit more.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, wait, can I ask you a couple questions?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. And so remind me, what were the hesitations for you when you were starting to decide to build a team?
So you probably know this about me already. I don't have a lot of patience. I mean, I spent many years in like the retail world in my younger years, and there's people who work hard and there are people who don't work hard. And I think it was a combination of finding people who wanted to have the same vision as I did, and I interviewed like several agents that like I had a woman just said to me, she's like, I don't want to work that hard. I'm like, okay, great, no problem, totally respect that. And then also I realized a long time ago about myself, I'm not a transactional agent. I don't pay for leads. I don't that's not who I am. I'm not to say I don't want people calling me from seeing my podcast or seeing something on social, but that is something that would happen organically. That is not the way I build my business. I don't want to have that kind of volume. I don't want to have a 20-person team. And you know me, like I know one person, then I know the whole family, and then I get invited over and I get peppers, you know who you are, like that's the kind of person I am. So it was really tough for me to kind of let that go. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bring it on.
And what's been the biggest surprise for you since bringing Ashley and I on?
My life work balance. the life work balance for me, knowing that I have two incredible women that I can like leave people that I like.
Wait,
really
did it sound like I'm fishing for a compliment by asking that? As I was not.
No, it's
But
true.
that's nice.
I truly, I mean, I said it to Darren the other day. I've said it to my husband after the summer. I've never had a summer where I could like just go to the cottage or be away or extend it an extra day knowing that like if anything came up. And that's not to say you guys were hanging out waiting for me. It was just that this balance of three people.
Right.
And again, going back to people who are thinking about a team is, questions to ask is like, hey, no problem. If we're looking for a house or if I'm going to sell my house with you, what happens if you go away? What happens if you have a family emergency? What happens, right?
Right.
And I think what you need to realize is that it's okay to expect your agent to be on call for you 24/7 if you're selling your house or if you're looking for something. I
Right.
really do believe that.
Yeah.
But I can't necessarily give that to you as one person.
Yeah.
So that has been the best part about it, when I was in Israel, I did not worry. Like I can have a true vacation, and I have been on enough calls and dealt with enough, like negotiated enough deals being 12 hours like time difference before.
Right. Yeah.
I do it. It's not fun, but I do it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was all. That was
open
all.
book.
Yeah.
Open book. Thank you. All righty.